Right, welcome back. We're joined by some actual guests today instead of kind of degenerate idiots. We've got John and Nick. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Very
good to have
welcome.
you
Very
on.
welcome. So we reached out. Obviously, I'm kind of representing my Avalanche swag, which is way too small because I've put way too much weight on recently, but that's all right. We just we just wanted to kind of get an update from you guys. Obviously, we've been avid supporters of everything that's happening at Avalanche, AvaLabs, and all that jazz. So, what? Let's just kind of intros and day to day. So, what's it look like for you, John, and then you, Nick?
Yeah, so thanks for having me and Nick, and it's great to catch up with you guys and the broader community. Geez, what's a day like? It's incoming from every angle and every possible thing. I mean, we juggle a lot, and I think we punch way above our weight on the BD side. So John Nahas, Vice President, head up the BD team, so oversee 6 verticals within business development. So at AvaLabs, our primary focus, of course, is the growth of the Avalanche ecosystem. On the BD side, it's broken into those 6 verticals, like I alluded to, which are institutional and capital markets, enterprise, exchanges and wallets, GameFi, NFTs, and DeFi. So each one of those things has a lead and an associate team that go out there. So working with those leads, working with partners, setting up partnerships, strategy, internal meetings, external meetings all day, a whole lot of Slack and Telegram, 24/7 on Telegram, of course. So a bunch of fun stuff.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And was it just on a personal note? Was it were you always kind of involved in this space before Avalanche came around, or was it more of a transition from traditional markets into kind of this Web3 crypto space?
A little bit of both, right? I always say, like, if you're under 25 or 20, if you're over 25 or 26 years old, most people in this space have come to this space from something else. I think that's actually been one of the benefits of the crypto space and blockchain space, is that it's super multidisciplinary. You have people from, journalism, finance, engineering, everything, right? So it's brought a lot of disciplines, a lot of different ways to think about how we create a decentralized digital economy. It brings together all these things. I've been in startups for a long time. I have a background in political science and international policy. I have a master's in diplomacy. I was doing the think tank thing for a while. Spent some time in the Middle East, Russia, Europe, doing international trade for a while, trade finance. Launched a digital news startup, and then previous to AvaLabs was founding team for a company called Token Vault, which was a fintech platform that utilized blockchain technology. We built a lot of stuff for financial services. We built a retail-facing app. We got acquired by a major financial services institution in late 2019, and then jumped in headfirst, full crypto in 2020. Joined the team at AvaLabs the same day as Nick did, actually, 11 days before mainnet launch. The BD team was 2 people. Now we're about 20. So it's grown tremendously in almost 2 years.
Awesome. So Nick, what's it look like when you're not kind of fly fishing or bringing decentralized fish into the world?
Yeah, so we have that unique position of sitting between John's team and the engineering team. The product team is broken into 7 channels explicitly. So you have your classic kind of vision, strategy, specification. Then we have the design team that builds out a lot of the great user experiences you see. We have an execution team, it's like a project management team or technical product management team, really working with the engineering teams very closely and making sure that everything is being built to spec and kind of working through the issues there. Then we have a product analytics team, which is kind of measuring how we did, and making sure that all the targets and the assumptions we made were accurate. There's a product quality team, a product support team, and finally a product marketing team. So my day is basically working between each of those 7 disciplines to make sure that the products that we're building are compelling and really kind of meeting the needs of our community.
Okay, great. So I think just for listeners and audience that might not kind of understand the difference. So how does Avalanche and AvaLabs kind of distinguish itself, and how does kind of I mean, we'll get onto core in a minute, but how does features and product like that actually get kind of decided and put into the pipeline? Because obviously there's an awful lot of places that you can kind of target and attack in this space. So how does that even work, and what is like the kind of distinction between Avalanche, AvaLabs, and how does that all work?
So I'll take a first stab at this. So AvaLabs is a for-profit entity. It's a for-profit company domiciled in the United States. Kind of was the impetus behind the creation of Avalanche as a blockchain. Avalanche now is a public utility layer 1 blockchain that's housed in a nonprofit. It's open source. Anyone can build on it, of course. So Avalanche has its foundation. AvaLabs is a for-profit company. We are a licensed service provider to the Avalanche Foundation. So we provide the foundation with key administrative operations across engineering, product, business development, and marketing. So as I mentioned, right, our first and foremost mandate is the growth of the Avalanche ecosystem. But secondly, and in addition to that mandate, is to build product for the Avalanche ecosystem, as Nick and his team do, but also to work with partners, whether enterprise or whoever else, to build product solutions and partnerships to utilize Avalanche.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. So one of those kind of flagship products that's been shipped recently is obviously Core. So I'm going to just bring up a couple of images. But so who is behind this? Who's the mastermind behind this? And what's the kind of basic reasoning?
Yeah, so Core really goes back to January of 2020 when we started kicking around this concept of a Web3 OS. Really looking at kind of what the user experience was today and some of the barriers that users were facing in being able to use the app. On top of that, there was no support for native tokens in Avalanche. We knew Subnets was coming around, and I'll talk about that as well. But and we needed that, and we really wanted a place where people could easily move around this multi blockchain world and be able to interoperate in a very clean manner. And that's kind of where it came. And then from that idea inception, the team just kind of comes together, and it takes input from every part of the organization to get to where we are today and kind of the roadmap looking forward.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I've used it. It's absolutely great product, and I think it does remove that barrier to entry. Whereas the standard MetaMask or anything, kind of like if I was to ask my parents to open a MetaMask and kind of fiddle around with it, it'd just be, I know I'd never get them off the phone, and it'd just do my head in, and I wouldn't be able to kind of do anything. But this, I suppose you kind of, with any product, you're looking at kind of the bugbears of what's kind of already on the market, and then going out to kind of better that, make it better, cheaper, more efficient, more user friendly and things. We're seeing a lot of development in people starting to push now into kind of mobile first and trying to hit the kind of mobile market. Would there be any kind of interest on a personal note or from kind of AvaLabs to kind of push that, or are the kind of guardrails from iOS and the Google Store and things like that just a little bit too high for Web3 applications at the minute?
I mean, yeah, it's a really good question. So, I mean, initially we kind of thought, hey, there's enough wallets kind of out in the market right now. And then we looked at it and we said, you know what? Nobody's going to properly support this concept of subnets. This concept where, if you're a builder and you're going to deploy a subnet onto Avalanche, then you have to worry about, do I have a wallet that represents me? Do I have a wallet that represents my tokens? Do I have an Explorer? And all these kind of surrounding pieces that are really necessary to support a complex blockchain ecosystem that it's not one blockchain. It's not like, hey, build your thing, put it here, fit into our box. It's build your thing to your vision and deploy it the way you want. And that's really how Avalanche has always been. It's really been a builder's set of utilities. With that said, we're looking at mobile. I mean, I think there's two routes you can go with mobile. You can go with the native app, and Core has a mobile app that will be released in the fall, in the next month or so, which we're very excited about. Replicates a lot of the functionality, but also allows you to use things like Wallet Connect to sign from your mobile, and has some additional features around watch list. Will we go into the full hardware area too? That one's really TBD. I think it's a really interesting approach. And I can see why they would do it. Like strategically, I can see some advantages to going down to that level. But I do feel like there's quite a bit of risk in it. So that's kind of we'll wait and see and watch closely to see where it goes. But the mobile app itself will be released just around the corner.
Great. Yeah, and I want to highlight some of the things Nick said, right? So like in the day-to-day where I sit, like I am dealing with our partners, and in those partners, as I mentioned, those verticals, one of them is exchanges and wallets, so primarily wallets, right? Like here we are working with expanding wallets, expanding users, bringing new wallets into Avalanche while we have one that's been created by AvaLabs. And to Nick's point, right? The biggest impetus here, of course, also with Subnets. We have a couple live now, but we have dozens coming online between now and the end of the year. And what we couldn't, have and be reliant on is having these guys do all this work to develop a subnet, and then find a wallet that's going to support them, or tell their users or a new user to come in and reconfigure a MetaMask or whatever it is, primarily on the gaming front, right? Because at the end of the day, gamers want to play a game. They might be willing to jump through a hoop or two, but they're not going to, like some people just don't want to do the whole Web3 experience. Download a wallet, seed phrase, get funds, switch your network, do a million things. They just want to log in and play. So ultimately, right, whether it's your browser or, like you said, your mobile, this becomes your kind of joystick to a GameFi ecosystem that you want to join. So by setting up a wallet and clicking a button and you're in that subnet, it gives people that ease of use, or at least an easier path into that GameFi Web3 experience. We've got some of the best partners in the ecosystem as wallet providers, but they have their development cycles, they have their roadmaps. And for us to come in every time and raise our hands and say, add subnet support, add it by this date, this subnet goes live on that date. We need, we can't be reliant on third parties and their roadmaps and dev cycles to support the projects and the developers that we have coming on board at a more rapid pace coming up, right? So we needed a solution that would be ready, that is Avalanche native. A lot of ecosystems have a native wallet. Some piggyback on other ecosystems' wallets. We wanted something that captured the Avalanche experience, as well as the speed and the finality, right? A lot of wallets that you use were initially configured for ETH. So it doesn't matter how much you try and fix them, they're never going to be able to showcase the speed of Avalanche, because they weren't built for it, right? They were built for a slower system. So you're always going to make it incrementally better rather than starting it at a solid foundation that highlights the benefits of Avalanche.
And hey, Grant, I'll just throw in a few other pieces of that. It's not we're not looking to be single chain in any way. Matter of fact, I'm sure Core will support more blockchains as subnets come online than anything else. Two things we're going to announce very soon. So you see it's got a full support as a Bitcoin wallet. So it's not just that you can bridge Bitcoin over, you can send, receive. It's fully functional there. The next release will also contain full support for ETH and ETH transactions. So we'll keep adding other networks in. We're really not trying to create any barriers for the user. It's quite the opposite of that. And then the other thing coming on in the next release is just the ability to add any network. So we call it dynamic networks, but just you can add your own network. And then the subnets, as they come online, will automatically get registered into Core. So there'll be full support from them from the get-go. And so we really needed Core to be able, again, to deliver the experience that ultimately we want builders and users to have, which is the guarantees that all the things they need, all the networks they need to access are going to be there, and there's not going to be a lot of obstacles or a very complicated UI for them to work within to achieve what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, that makes an awful lot of sense. So with regards to the bridging within the app, can we just touch upon the Bitcoin bridge and what the kind of relevance and what the importance of that is? Obviously, we've had over to have a look. Nearly 51 million bridge now, and we're saying native Bitcoin bridge in it. And can we just touch upon what the, as I say, what the importance of that is, and why that was kind of pushed quite early on in the development of the app?
Sure. Yeah. So we've been working on, trying to access Bitcoin, support Bitcoin, in the bridging functionality for a while. And our bridge team, which is a separate product team building uniquely, came up with a really novel solution for how to bridge Bitcoin in a non-custodial fashion, which means you don't have to put it with a third party to then get some kind of wrap version out. It's basically, because the wallet supports Bitcoin natively, you basically are just moving your Bitcoin into your wallet, which is non-custodial. And then in the process of bridging it over, you get wrapped BTC on the other side. And then there's a bunch of opportunities where you can use your wrapped Bitcoin as collateral or for DeFi functions. We're seeing several other use cases coming forward. And so that was really the thinking was, hey, you have this giant asset that so many people hold, and let's give people more utilization for that asset and really allow those users to experience everything that's available to them in the Avalanche ecosystem.
Yeah, great move in my opinion. And so we'll basically see similar how we've got this set up at the minute where you could just send your Bitcoin to this address, hit the bridge, send it over. Then we've got Bitcoin on the C chain, but what you're saying we'll see in a couple of weeks is, or whenever it comes out, we'll be able to do the same with ETH as well. So we'll probably have another kind of block or something down here where we could actually initiate that bridge between ETH and Avalanche as well. Is that correct?
Exactly. So you'll just see ETH as another network. Those blocks all represent a network, and as you have assets in that network, it shows you all of them, and then takes your entire portfolio and aggregates it up, so you're getting a top line view of every network you're participating in. Which was again the point. We don't want these fragmented views into your Web3 world. We want this holistic view into what you're holding. Another thing is, as you move between them, if you click into that network, then you're automatically switching to that network as well. So you're not having to think a lot about going up to the network switcher. Where do I want to be? We're kind of, you have to abstract all that away so that the user just goes where they want, and we're kind of sensing where they are, and then the wallet's reflecting that so they can transact in the network they're presently working in. So yeah, ETH will show up there, and then in the bridging section, it already supports the ETH bridging, so that will just continue to be there for that.
Yeah, there we go. So we've touched upon subnets and just briefly on gaming. I think Jerry's got more of a stronger opinion on where the next 100 million plus users will come from. Are you guys of the opinion of, I mean, the GameFi thing, it's kind of a strange one, right? If you're looking at it from like someone who spends an awful lot of time in this space, they kind of invest in this space and kind of look for opportunities where they place their capital. It seems like the whole GameFi thing is everyone knows it's coming, and it's just everyone's waiting for that kind of one boom. Obviously, we've seen it with Axie and things like that, but there's going to need to be some multiple iterations upon the tokenomics process. So do you guys see the next 100 kind of million people coming in? Do you think it will be the whole GameFi experience that brings those people there? And Jerry's going to probably butcher me here for saying that.
No, but John said it earlier on. He kind of, I mean, he hit the nail on the head when he said that a guy who's coming into game, he wants the one-stop solution. Gamers have always been about forcing the envelope around the path to least resistance. You can't attract a gamer if you don't give them the full enchilada, and that's what's happening here. So you have, us geeks who have fiddled. I mean, we were there on day one with Avalanche. We've been there, and one of my questions was, what was the worst moment for you guys setting everything up? Like, I'd love to hear what that is, but we can answer that one later. But it's just amazing how like when DeFi Kingdoms did the subnet, I think that was like one of the real pressure points from my user experience on the Avalanche network. I don't know if you guys can relate to that day and that moment when DFK launched, and the network really was tested. It passed the test, but it really did kind of like, okay, well, this is what we're in store for. I mean, can you guys reflect on that moment a little bit?
So, I mean, look, I think taking a step back and looking at both what we're doing, the launch of DFK and anything, what we're building is new. This entire space is new and it's novel. And for as much as people like to think that they have all the answers and people on Twitter can pontificate about what their opinion is versus the others, unless you're on the ground building these things and dealing with them, right, you don't understand the complexity, right? Nick always likes to joke because me on the business side like to make these great kind of comments, and I'll say, oh, that's easy. And he'll say, things are easy because technology makes it easy, but it's actually taking a hard thing and making it easy is the job of technology. And nobody, let's be frank, knows if something's going to work until it works. Yeah. It's all theory. It's all speculation. Everything we're doing in this industry, whether it's us or Ethereum or other chains, is new. And sometimes you gotta, cross your fingers and hope that things work initially. But we've always taken a stance, at least at AvaLabs and with Avalanche, of starting from a place of strength and being a little more conservative, right? So to give you a perfect example, you've seen network usage over the past 2 years go up with C-chain pricing and network pricing going down. Reason being, we take a stance that the chain needs to be up all the time. We are not going to be reckless and try and drop the fee so much and have an issue. So we've always optimized for safety and liveliness. We've always taken a more conservative approach. We've tested, retested. Sometimes things have taken longer, but at least when we do, it comes out the way we anticipate that it will. No one can ever guarantee anything in this space. But I want to get back to your point about gaming because it's important. And then there's 2 points here that are important. One, for the game developer, right? Their focus is developing a game. So with subnets, call it an app-specific chain, or a business-specific chain in the case of enterprise. They want to focus on what they're building. They're not distributed systems professionals. They're not, engineers and architects for blockchains, right? The thing you saw, the Axie, is exactly it, right? They had a great thing. They tried to build the chain and they had an issue. So we are giving that infrastructure, right? We have paved the roads, laid the piping, put up the power lines. You can now you can take that highway and build this. We'll build a little street to your new destination for you. You focus on building that destination. That's what your job is. Leave the infrastructure to us. And to your point, gamers want to get to the point, right? Like nobody wants to go through all of these things. Now, I think what you've seen in gaming is kind of gaming 1.0, with these 2 token models and play to earn and idle play and a million things. Just like with NFTs, it's early. People are testing the boundaries and speculating and figuring out what's going to work and what isn't. And in a bull market, of course, everything works. Everything goes up. Everything's working. What we're going to see, though, is I think growing is these in-game economies, right? People want to buy skins and trade features and do all these things. And these things can be tokenized, right? And they should be tokenized, but they should be simple. They should be abstracted away into the background. So that's kind of the focus here, right? If you build a game. And let's be very transparent here. That demographic is ripe for Web3, males 18 to 30, who spend a big amount of their disposable income on games. But exactly it, right? They don't want to go through the whole hoopla. They just want to log in and play DFK or log in. And I think what you're going to see on Avalanche between the AAA games coming like Shrapnel and Ascenders and AA games and single, like there's the whole gamut of games, right? From as simple as it gets to as fancy as it gets from real production houses, right? Not these simple games, but games that you would find on an Xbox or a PlayStation that are going to have a Web3 component, that are going to have an associated wallet to them that you can buy, trade, and earn playing these new games. I think what we've seen, that gaming 1.0 really paved the groundwork to show what's possible. And I think now you're going to see a lot of growth across that. And then from gaming, then you tie in NFTs, you tie in DeFi, you tie in all these other associated economies that can grow and flourish from this and really create something special.
I'll just add to that too, to John made a lot of good points there, but one of the issues I think that started with was interoperability and the bridging. It wasn't necessarily that the subnets themselves weren't functioning properly. It was just getting from one chain to another. And this kind of goes back to the conversation that we were having at the very beginning around interoperability. And especially for subnets, interoperability is going to be king. You don't want to think about where you're moving to or how you're moving it. It just needs to be pretty seamless, kind of like packets flying around in the internet. You're not really having to move from place to place. It's happening below the scene. And we have this saying that, when will Web3 really take off? When users no longer know that they're using the blockchain, right? It has to be this seamless, interoperable experience. And bridges like the Avalanche bridge we showed you is one solution to that. We're working on another solution right now that I can't go into too much detail, but we're very excited about, that really creates that interoperable structure when you're going to be able to move around between these networks seamlessly without even having to think about it and move your assets around. And so, that's a piece we're really excited about. There's one other point which kind of gets into what gamers want. And we know that they want all these various tools to be able to snap into their subnets, like verifiable randomness is something that a lot of game builders want. And so we don't want them to have to go build their own solution for that. It should just be a menu of options that you get to choose from in order to build. We want to get you at a very high starting point, so you're really just focusing on the last mile for your application, getting it to market, really meeting your users' needs from a feature functionality point of view, rather than the surrounding infrastructure of all the pieces it takes to properly work together in order to create a fluid blockchain experience.
Awesome. Yeah, it's going to be interesting when we actually see games that are built with the game in mind, as opposed to these as you say, the web. I mean, the gaming 1.0 did pave the way for what's coming, but it's going to be completely. I think it's going to open a lot of people's eyes when we actually see like those top level game studios come into the space, and it just makes a lot of sense. I think it's just going to be one of those things, and it doesn't necessarily move until it really moves, and then everyone's kind of like, yeah, we saw this, but hopefully everyone can benefit off the back of that. I know we're kind of a little bit pushed for time. I just wanted to point out one or two more things. It's me and Jerry have been talking to a lot of projects, and we've been seeing a lot of projects that did extremely well when everything was in greener pastures and everyone was happy and everything was up to the right. But now, kind of, when things have got a little bit more turbulent, it's you can kind of see who's had the house in order. And I came across that is it Avalanche or AvaLabs is still hiring across multiple platforms. Obviously, that's an immediate kind of green flag for everyone in the industry. It's just like, how hard is it to kind of not get carried away when everything's just going absolutely mental and everything looks like it's going to be kind of up only forever with regards to speculation, and how hard is it to kind of just keep level headed when all those things are kind of going your way at once?
I'll jump in here. I think this is because the bull market has cliches and a bear market has cliches, and I think, of course, the cliche that we always hear in a bear market is builders keep building, right? Like that's the fallback default that everyone says. But our roadmap has not changed. Our development roadmap hasn't changed. Our growth roadmap hasn't changed. People got carried away in the bull. I don't think we did. In terms of roadmap and rushing out and hiring a ton of people, we've grown to a pretty big team in a relatively short period of time, but we've also grown exponentially. So I think, we have a steady focus. I think a lot of our teams in our space are much larger than ours. I know there's BD teams that are significantly much larger than mine, as well as product teams larger than Nick's, and a million other things. So these are roles that have always been in the plan, and they're still part of the plan, and the plan continues on our end, right? Whether it's on the engineering side with features, markets don't dictate when you rush features out. Testing and proper execution dictate that. Partnerships change depending on it, but the team doesn't. Our team has weathered the height of the bull, and it is heads down pushing right now in this current market. So yeah, we're definitely continuing to grow. We have a lot of potential across engineering and product. BD's good for now. There are a couple roles we might be having coming up soon. Not rushing them either, but so if anyone's interested in a BD role, keep an eye out for the site. We update them when needed. But yeah, I mean, it's always a time to continue growing.
One of the things that we've also, like, that's kind of become like a resounding, I don't know, conclusion for me over this last cycle was, the sustainability of projects. And it's been discussed quite a bit on our channel, and here I go again. It's kind of like, who gets to decide which projects get introduced into an ecosystem, and is the sustainability of that project interrogated in light of all? I mean, listen, we know that the casino aspect of blockchain is always going to be there. Someone referred to it as the weeds will always be in the garden, and you're not going to get rid of it. But I just felt in this last cycle there was too much of it, and I also wanted to just pose the question, is that something that has been discussed, and is it something that is kind of like, well, let's actually endeavor to build a foundation around what DeFi was built to do, around financial services. I mean, it's called decentralized finance, not decentralized finance / Ponzi, and it's kind of like a lot of these projects, I think, had good intentions, but they landed up kind of like losing their sustainability. And I mean, where do you think that goes? I mean, John, obviously from a business development perspective, I mean, it's probably one of the most difficult aspects. I mean, how do you guys look at that?
So I think it's twofold. One, we're a lot more prudent in who we support and work with. I think there is an old ethos in crypto with projects and people that do a lot of spraying and praying just to bring as many developers, as many projects, as many users as possible, and that's all great until things don't work out, right? So we are very thoughtful in who we partner with and who we support. We do checks, we do diligence, we have product check code, we do a million things before we partner or amplify or support a project. Secondly, it is a public chain, so anybody can launch anything they want whenever they want. The differentiator is whether we put our name and credibility behind it, support it, and we are pretty conservative in that effort. Secondly, as I mentioned, some projects like to spray and pray to incentivize builders and developers to come build. We take the inverse approach, and I think you've seen this with the Rush campaign, and you've seen it, which kind of ignited DeFi, and I think you've seen it with Multiverse for Subnets. We incentivize the user, right? So we loved
Rush, by the way. We loved Rush. It was awesome.
Because
Rush 2.
Well, let's see what happens there. But if you think about it, what we did is, we incentivized users to come in, and there was liquidity money and all this stuff, but we didn't incentivize projects. The projects came, the projects launched, and we incentivized the users to come try it. It started first with Ethereum blue chips because the authority and credibility was there, right? And then we started growing. Then Avalanche native projects that have been around for a while got support. And then new projects that built on Avalanche started to get support, but they only get support after they launch. And after a certain time period has passed in which, there's no hacks, there's no rugs, there's no issues, there's nothing. Everyone to us is doxed, or we know who they are. Like, we don't do this like stuff, right? Yeah. So how we support is through incentives for users. How we support is by amplification, and we do so only on those things that we've vetted pretty difficultly, right? Sometimes we're often criticized that we might be slow or timid, but you only need to be wrong once or twice for people to never let you forget it. Whether we were associated or not with certain projects, people go, "Oh, that was an Avalanche project." Anyone can launch anything on us, right? We never supported those, so.
That's not true, right, John? I mean, we want it to. That's the whole point. It's open source. We want it to be an open community, but at the same time, we're not just focused on. I agree with you, Jerry, that there was this nice foundation of innovation. Then you got one project that had certain kind of tokenomic structure, and then you just start to see the clones, right? And so instead of getting this nice broad base of innovation that was diversified, you got this very scary kind of narrow thing. And the tokenomics just started to get more and more outrageous. And of course, it toppled, and that's what we see today. From a product point of view, we really don't just look at it from the DeFi point of view. I mean, we call that channel consumer, and it breaks off into two worlds. It's DeFi and culture, and culture is a lot of the NFT stuff that you're seeing. Also, GameFi lives in there, and music and arts and films and all the other things that we see coming to the forefront. But there's also three other channels which we are really focused on making sure they're represented and what their capabilities are to build. And one of them is enterprise, just your standard enterprise use cases, working with your big companies, your shoe companies, and your CRMs. And we've seen a lot of different use cases come to the forefront. Another thing from my background, John's background, John Woo's background, is institutional finance. So we're heavily involved in looking at how traditional finance and DeFi can come together and work in a compliant, regulated fashion. And there, we see a tremendous amount of opportunity there. And the last of those four quadrants is government. Now, I personally have an interest in government because I think that, you see blockchains and all the underlying utilization and use cases for the technology. But one of them is they're a great source of truth across disparate data sources. Nobody has more disparate data sources than the governments. So by getting them into kind of these private blockchain or private public blockchains, which we prefer, then you start to see use cases that kind of go out and are a little bit more stable, and innovation is coming from multiple places rather than kind of just one area. And that's kind of what we see coming down the path.
But this is the evolution, right? I mean, I find this fascinating because essentially what you've just done now is that you've summarized the evolution of where we were when Satoshi created Bitcoin, and then all these things have happened, and now we've had the cycle, and in these cycles we get, like this almost like the wheat from the chaff. And now we had the ICOs in the last cycle. Now we had like plenty of Ponzi's, this vertical stuff, as you so eloquently described it as, and now it's like now we're rethinking it, and like you guys. And thank you for clarifying that. It's kind of like, okay, well, let's look at the financial services aspect of this thing, regulation. And, there was when you were chatting about being in the US, I wanted to ask you about that, but maybe for another call. But it's like, I think that's also like regulation and having listened to so much around, where the regulation is going and how important it is. People don't realize that regulation isn't necessarily a bad thing. Yes, it can be, but it's not a bad thing, because it allows for this beautiful thing that is this technology to be introduced in ways that it would never be introduced if it continued being this kind of like submersive, question mark. And it's interesting to see how this thing is evolving and where we're going with it, and the fact that you guys are obviously eyes wide open and you're saying, okay, cool, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to like engage with, and let's make it happen, which is really, really cool to hear.
I mean, I think, when people say, when is blockchain going to be ubiquitous, whatever, and Nick mentioned this, right? It's when you don't know it's being used. But more so than that, I think we're still searching for that killer app, right? What you've seen to date is a lot of chains that are solutions in search of a problem. And that's a cliche term too, but it's true, right? One chain that will solve all the world's problems if you talk to some of the maxis, right? When in reality, that we're so early in this space still because of the fact that there's maxis, because they only see things in black and white, when and they're fighting over crumbs, right? It's like a bunch of little mites fighting over crumbs, when behind that wall there's an entire kitchen for everybody to have plenty to eat forever, and there's actually not going to be enough chains. So what we've seen to date is a lot of replication of making things that currently exist a little bit better, right? Ultimately, people won't make that leap until it's as easy, if not easier, than what currently exists. As inexpensive or not, more inexpensive than what currently exists. Not cheap, because cheap means it doesn't usually work that well. So you need it to be as inexpensive, if not less, and fast, if not faster, or else we're reinventing the wheel in a slower fashion doesn't really help. So if I can't send money faster for the same cost, if not cheaper, and easier, forget it, right? Like, people have PayPal and Zelle and Venmo. If you can't find something faster and easier than that, it's not gonna make a difference in the payments stuff, right? Governments have an opportunity to interact directly with their citizens, unlock a lot of bureaucracy. That's it. But we don't know what that killer app is yet to be. Some people say it's NFTs. To date, that's not been it yet, right? Like the internet had email, and then several years later, social media. What's going to be transformative here? We don't know. Our best option and opportunity is to lay as much foundation and as much groundwork and as much infrastructure as possible, so that that next generation of developers and builders and thinkers can take this technology and create something truly novel with it.
That's great. We'll leave it on that. Great ending there. I know you guys have got much more important stuff to do than talk to us two idiots all day. So thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. And if there's anything you need from us, just say the word and kind of consider it done. We're happy to support you guys in any way and continue to do that as well.
Thanks for having us, guys. Honestly,
it's great to be here.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Talk again.
Right. Thanks, everyone.